All right. All right. We are live now on YouTube. So hope everybody's doing good. We got a few people here that have joined us live in Zoom. And then for all of our listeners that are maybe watching it live or watching it after the fact, we have a special guest today for today's WTF Wednesdays. Of course, WTF stands for What the Function. And
Yeah,
one of these
sure.
times, yeah, one of these times I'm going to slip up and say the wrong word, but it's all about business functions. Every week we have a different business function expert. Today we've got Lisa Shore, who's a brand expert with Shore Success, and we're going to talk about your brand, your bond, strengthening loyalty in the age of AI. And with that being said, Lisa, how are you doing today?
I am so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
It is awesome to have you here, and it's been a little while since we last seen each other. I'm trying to think where we ran into each other last. It's hard to keep track.
Which trade show? Which IT by design, perhaps? Or trying to think where
No,
I was. Is IT Nation Secure? Secure?
yeah, it could have been IT
Yeah.
Nation Secure. Could have been, for sure. I bet it was that. Otherwise, there's Beyond. There's ChannelCon.
There was, yeah, PAX 8 Beyond. I was there for that. I'll be at DattoCon coming up. Some of the Kaseya Connect local events I've been speaking at. Trying to think. I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
it's a beautiful thing that, where in the world, it's like where in the world is Waldo, right? Where in the world
right.
is he? And then we
Exactly.
connect.
Exactly. There's this con, that con, everywhere a con. There's all kinds of conferences happening. So. Yeah, so we've had you on. We talked in the past, and we've talked a lot about personal branding, which is so critical. Is not only for ourselves. I'm a firm believer in if you look good, you feel good, and so it's critical not only for ourselves. It helps from a mental perspective. Mental health, just our confidence, our the vibes that we push off and give off, but also for our team members, it's so critical. And so we're gonna, maybe twist things up a little bit today and talk about, strengthening loyalty in the age of AI. And with that being said, maybe, you could give a little bit more of a, deeper introduction of yourself and your background and, kind of where you came from. That'd be great.
So thank you for that. And you're absolutely right. There have been studies, by the way, Dan, that say that the way we dress absolutely psychologically impacts how we present ourselves and how we perceive ourselves. So there have been studies on how we dress. Different universities have done different studies, and that's what they found. So you are correct in what you just shared. I came on the scene as an image professional. I'm an MSP owner. My MSP, Secure Future Tech Solutions, is 33 years old. I came on the scene 27 years ago with my husband, and he and I run the business together. And probably, well, more than a decade ago now, my company was fired because of our phone skills. We were given
Mhm.
the gift of an exit interview, which you're not
Mhm.
given that often. So it was kind of
No.
nice to actually be able to hear, not that we wanted to hear it, don't get me wrong, but we were able to hear why we thought it was going to be a server issue or I don't know, something technical, and it
Right,
wasn't that at
right,
all. It was truly every time we call your office, your team acts as if they have no idea who I am. I have to explain myself every time. So all the listeners out there, think about when clients have left you. Have they said price? Oh, you're too expensive. Really, that's oftentimes an excuse for the value that we haven't delivered or something
right.
we've done unintentionally that we didn't even know. So I took that and I had to turn my company around. Eric came to me and said, "How are you going to fix this, Lisa?" And I'm like, "Oh, well, I'm a marketer." Well, you have human skills. I'm technical. I'm an engineer. What do I know about this? And I'm like, "Okay." So we started first working on our phone skills and writing scripts, practicing our tone of voice. Then I found an association that actually focuses on image consulting called the Association of Image Consultants International. And I joined them and I learned about the physical being and the power of perception and perception management and how powerful it is to decision making. So I built skills that I learned at that association that I'm still a member of, actually. I'll be at their conference next week. And I built it
Nice.
into my own MSP. And the changes and the growth and the client retention rates when we really tracked our success were really amazing. And I said, "Oh my God, I've got something here. Let me take it to the road." And I started coaching other MSPs. And then 2 years ago, I started writing Your Brand Unleashed. And this book
Yes.
is a compilation of all of my coaching and a variety of small business stories, but it's a blueprint for building loyalty and relationships and clients. And so today's conversation on AI and soft skills is now the next step into where we all need to start thinking about the human touch and being really aware, uber aware that the more we implement AI, the more distant we risk becoming from our clients. So I don't want anyone to be fired. That's always going to be
Yeah.
that was so traumatic for us. And I'm like, okay. So this kind of keeping that in mind, we have to keep humanity going, Dan. So that's why, I think that this topic is so critical right now.
Absolutely. And before we kick things off in that area, a little bit off topic, but you talked about that exit interview with that client that fired you at that point. Any advice for any MSP that might be offboarding, a client, um, you know, as far as getting that opportunity to have that exit interview, because you gather so much. I mean, you not only help to make it right, but you've built a whole business out of it. So,
I did.
it's well
I
worth the
did.
time. Yeah.
It's worth the time. And to set expectations, we don't get exit interviews from everybody, but we track our churn just like we track our sales and we track our leads and we track all of that. And we try so hard to every single client that is leaving us over the years, we always make the attempt and ask why. And sometimes they'll give us an answer, and sometimes we'll get the meeting and they'll tell us. And they'll say, well, lately some of the churn that we have this year is because clients have retired. There's
Yeah.
M&A happening. And so then they have other IT providers already that came with the other M&A, the merger and acquisition. And so, but it's important to ask. A lot of
Yeah.
people are afraid of the answer. And we were, I'm
Mhm.
not going to lie, we were. And we were shocked when we found out the real reason. We kind of default to technology, or we default and say, oh, they're difficult anyway. But what valuable feedback it was for us to understand wasn't technical at all. It was how we
Yeah.
made them feel. So ask, just take the time and don't be afraid. The feedback is a gift in any form. You don't want it. You don't want negative feedback, but how do we make change in ourselves if we don't know it?
I love that. I mean, because I think the most difficult thing is, setting our egos aside and realizing that we are all human. We do make mistakes, and it's how we learn from those mistakes that makes us better. And so, we're going to fail. I mean, it's inevitable.
It's
And
inevitable.
as long as we learn from our mistakes and we take that and build on that, then it's great.
Yes.
But it's so easy to get into a trap of making excuses. The old, well, but they were this or but they were that. But what about us? You know? So so I
Right.
love that. So thank you for sharing some additional pointers on that. With that being said, let's jump into the AI world and just how the world has changed.
Isn't it just fascinating
Yeah.
watching the evolution of AI? 2 years ago when I wrote the book, I'm telling everybody, I literally wrote the book myself. This is not
Yeah.
an AI book.
Yeah.
All me writing. I was coffee shops, 1 in the morning, whenever I could fit it in, I wrote this book by myself. And so AI is actually not in this book, but I didn't know how critical this book would become in the age of AI, as we're so excited about introducing chatbots to try to
Mhm.
triage questions and tickets and answer questions, or we're doing, we're automating every software we have now is some form of AI, some form of analysis, some form of writing capabilities, some form of
Right,
that. It's fascinating, and we have to embrace it. Our clients want us to embrace it. But as we're embracing it and we're finding, oh, wow, it's one less step I have to take. Oh, I don't have to add an additional engineer to do that analysis or to do that ticket creation or whatever it is. We get, I'm nervous that we're going to get too excited about too much tech and forget of why we actually have a client in the first place. And that's
right.
because they trust you and they value that relationship. That when they signed on with you, they had no idea, Dan, that you actually were technically capable. They
Right.
believed you were. They felt that you were.
Yep.
Then you had to prove yourself along the way. So, and
Yeah.
then once you start implementing more and more AI and more, the more you distance yourself. And I'm so, my mission is to say, no, we need to keep humanity going and keep that human touch alive.
Well, let's look at it from this perspective. We have, our kids have grown up in the world. Let's look at our family get-togethers, our holiday parties, where everybody is sitting
Everybody's
around,
this.
everybody's like this, right? And we
Yep.
have distanced ourselves from our families, um, you've got my daughter might be sitting on the couch and I send her a text and it's like, we have become so prone to
So
just
prone.
leveraging technology. So that's carrying over. And what you're trying to tell us is that is carrying over to that relationship with our clients. And, and the saying is, if I'm correct, it hasn't changed from people buy from people. It's still people buy from people. It hasn't converted over to people buy from robots, right?
Mhm.
I'm not
For
missing anything, right?
I mean, you've got e-stores, you've got, there
Sure,
are
sure.
definite, e-stores out there and e-commerce and for sure. But, so I was speaking at an event and I had to order books and I order books in bulk. When I order books in bulk for an event, I order, one of the places I order from is Ingram Spark. And I was having a problem with their website. I couldn't figure it out. And I tried, there was no phone number to call. It was all chatbot, and I wasn't
Yeah.
asking the right question. Now, I love
Mm,
Ingram Spark. This isn't, me saying I'm not a fan of Ingram Spark and all of that, but they've embraced the chatbot support system. And I
yeah.
could not figure out how to phrase my question properly to get an answer. And it just kept saying back and back. And I'm like, I need to get books out for a deadline. And I can't because I don't know what I'm asking. It's like, I got
Right.
frustrated. So imagine our clients can't find a file. It's a lawyer and they're in the courtroom and they need to access a file of a client immediately and they can't get it. It's a doctor who needs patient information, but the patient's in critical care and they need something and they can't access that data. Whatever it could be. So think about our clients and who you serve. Do you want
Yeah.
them responding to a chatbot first?
Hmm.
We don't, because they need a human to help guide us. We don't always know the questions to ask. It's up to us
Right.
as a service provider to be able to extract the information so that we can support them. So, because they're not technical, they don't know. And I didn't know how to ask the right question. And I found a phone number online, but then I refreshed the next morning. And the website worked, but it was a very trying experience.
Yeah. Well,
So thank
I think what we're talking about is, we need to give options, right? We need to give options and we need to give that
you.
human option because, we can't just ignore the traditional means of communication. Somebody might want to pick up the phone, whether it be that that's just how they prefer to communicate, or they've exhausted the, chatbot. They've exhausted any digital means of finding the answer. And either you're going to give them the option to interact with a human, or they're going to go to the competition, and end of story,
Yep.
period.
End of story. End of story. Absolutely. That happened to us. Like I said, it happened to us. And easily, if people don't have patience anymore, if one thing that our digital natives have has created, our digital nativeness has created, and that's a lack of attention span and a lack of patience
Right.
for drawn out responses. Nobody wants to wait. Everybody wants immediate response. It's very hard. It's hard to keep up. It's so hard to keep up. But if you're not getting if they're not getting what they need from a chatbot, you're not going to know. Either they can call you, maybe, if they pick up the phone, but a lot of people aren't picking up the phone.
Yep.
Or, they're just going to go find someone else. They're going to Google search somebody else. So easy as that.
Just an example, I needed to call on a prescription to my local national, international, pharmacy, a Walgreens. And
Mhm.
so I was not able to get the answers I needed through the app. So I called the number, and the automated attendant, I basically said, speak to pharmacy.
Right.
And it said, okay, we can connect you to the pharmacy. However, did you know that we can answer many of those questions for you right here online? And please give us this.
Yes.
And so, what was my next response? Speak to pharmacy, right?
Yes.
And, so, if somebody was listening to those, those prompts, those answers on those prompts, I'm sure, sensing the tone and the frustration, that's what we need to be listening to. We
Right.
because otherwise, you lose it.
And that's one of those soft skills that AI cannot pick up.
Right.
There's a few key soft skills that AI cannot pick. It can write emotionally. It can write, you can tell it to write in almost any kind of tone that you want. But when it's in a human interaction, AI isn't going to feel frustration, isn't going to pick up on that nuance. And so there's a couple of areas that AI is not equipped, and I have no idea. You and I could be meeting again in a year, Dan, and
Yep.
we could have a very a carry-on conversation. In 6 months, I bet if you and I met,
Right.
this conversation would be different. And I have no
Yeah.
idea. But for now, there's a few key soft skills that AI that I'd love to explore if we could, that AI
Yes.
cannot, it just can't pick up on. And one of them is empathy.
Mm,
That empathy that you need that prescription to live your
yep.
life. You need that prescription to make you, whatever the ailment is, you need that prescription. And if you can't get it called in, you're frustrated. Maybe you're late taking that medication. Maybe you're, who knows, right? But so then maybe Walgreens isn't going to be your place anymore. Maybe you go over to CVS. Maybe you go over to whatever. It's like,
Yeah.
it's
And
frustrating, but AI can't pick that up. They
let's
don't know.
carry this over to a client scenario.
Right.
They're trying to print something, right? And if your
Mhm.
first line of defense is use our chatbot, and they're like trying to print, getting this error, and and it can't pick up on the fact that they are 10 minutes away from $1 million proposal they're delivering, and they need to get this printed,
Amazing.
and this could make or break their business.
Right. Right. A human needs to say, and I kind of wrote a few notes. So if you see me looking away, I wrote a few notes.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
understand how frustrating this must be. So, humanly, we need to say things like that. So maybe for the listeners out there, here's a couple of conversation starters or some language that will help support you in your efforts to provide amazing client experience. But I understand how frustrating this must be. Let's fix this together. Let's take a look at this, or let me get this looked at right away. I know you have a deadline. AI isn't going to say that. AI is going to say, okay, ticket has been created. Here is your ticket number.
we hope to
Great.
get back to you in the next 12
24
to
hours. Right.
24 hours, right?
Mhm.
So empathy is one of those areas that, and empathy comes in multiple forms. And you mentioned ego earlier, and in the book I mentioned empathy over ego. We need to have that
Yeah.
empathy over ego. And we're super smart in the IT industry, and I am in awe daily of the brain power in this industry. But one of the areas that we need to really hone in on and work harder at is putting that brain power aside for a moment and be empathetic toward, hey, the client is feeling what? And being able
Right.
to connect with that empathy. And that comes in the form of the words we say, but the tone of voice that we deliver it, the eye contact that we make, the physical being of being in front, like, when you're in a meeting, or if you're doing a client business review meeting or a technical business like QBR or TBR, whatever you call them, and you're distracted or you're not making eye contact with the client or giving a strong handshake, perception is reality. And
Right.
we don't know everyone who is raised differently, has different sets of values. So that empathy piece, that physical empathy piece is critical. AI can't match that right now. It's not there.
Yeah.
So we need to think about that. So that's one key area.
I just do want to throw out if anybody has any questions, comments, whether you're here in Zoom or you're chatting on YouTube, please feel free to throw those out there. We'll be happy to answer or listen to your stories as well.
Love that. Please do. Please do. Another one I think, Dan, I would love to kind of think about is adaptability. Say a
Yeah.
client is downsizing. So when I say to you, Dan, a client's downsizing, what's your first thought,
They're running out of money.
right? Could be,
Yep.
could be. We
Yep.
don't really, that could be our first initial reaction. But what if they're retiring? Maybe they're downsizing because they're getting ready to retire and they don't need the big network anymore. They're just going to go from a 5-person law firm and they're just going to work the next few years on their single client group and they don't need the rest of the group and they're just going to be on their own, or,
Yeah.
right? We don't know. And AI can't an AI bot might, hey, okay, let me give you a quote for, if you change your computer count from 10 to 5, let me give you a new quote and maybe generate a quote. But it's critical for us to actually sit down and have a conversation of, tell me what's going on. How
Yep.
can I help you? How can I take you on the next step of your journey? What can we do different? And so
Absolutely.
we sometimes head toward the perception of, oh my God, they're losing money. Am I going to get paid? Am I going to? But the reality is
Yeah.
maybe there's just a change in their decision. Maybe, like I said, retirement, maybe, but AI can't do that. They can't focus on that human question because they're programmed to be, they have their set of programs and parameters, and that's what they ask. So if anybody that's listening has a story or an example that goes along with empathy and AI or adaptability and how AI can, I'd love to see it in the chat. I'd love to hear about it. So, because, the more stories we share together, the more this comes to reality and to life, and we can have this critical conversation. So I think that another one is trust building. And when I talk about trust building, I talk about it in a way of when an MSP makes a mistake, how do they own up to it?
Yep.
Um, I think one good one is missing a scheduled appointment. What if you've missed a scheduled appointment? What if an engineer is running late? What if a server is on back order and the client doesn't believe you, or you haven't told the clients on back order, they're just waiting and they don't believe you, but they haven't heard from you. That's what I was trying to say. So the
Yeah.
client hasn't heard from you. How do you build trust that way? How do you build credibility? If you're not communicating, hey, I'm so sorry we missed the mark. Let me get you on the schedule right away. I'm so sorry we missed, you know what? We should have called you. The engineer is running late. He's stuck at another client site. They were waiting for another support of another vendor to show up and they were late. And I meant to call you and I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I've
Let me
always,
get you on.
I've always said, anticipate what the client might be thinking. We get to know our clients. AI can't get to know our clients like we get to know our clients.
Mhm.
We know how they're going to respond and how they're going to react. We know that if we give them a call ahead of time, that, let's say our schedule is just jam packed and we have, something's got to give. We
Mhm.
know this particular client, if we give them a call and say, you know what, this is what's happening. I know your issue, is important for you for us to come out and get this resolved. However, it's my understanding that based on what we need to do, you can continue to operate. I just want to make sure I'm correct on this,
Mhm.
and they might say, hey, you know what, no problem at all, and I think what's going to happen though is, with AI responses, it's going to be based on a lot of assumption. It's going to be, that, understanding and that knowledge of who that client is and how they're going to respond.
Right.
On the flip side, you might have that client that's very reasonable and, and willing to say, hey, no problem. I can wait a couple more days. You have the other client on the opposite side that they are the VIP. They're the most important in the world. You are their only client. And, you darn well better not be calling me to say that you're going to be late. You,
Can't we all relate?
so
Can't we all relate? Yes.
yeah, yeah. So can you imagine if an automated response, like maybe through a chatbot comes in and says, "Hey, we're sorry that we're not able to assist you today. Um, we'll get back to you within the next day to let you, to reschedule this." And it's like, "What do you mean get back to me to reschedule? I'm expecting this." And
Right.
yeah,
So AI, yeah, exactly. AI can create automated tickets and all that, but without, I think the biggest message on that is picking up the phone and setting expectations. Sometimes, or oftentimes, even if you don't have a definitive answer, picking up the phone and letting a client know and say, hey, I'm still waiting to hear back from to see where, where in transit those laptops are. I'm still waiting to hear back from, or I know we had an appointment scheduled for 1:30. The engineer is going to be running, a little bit late. They're stuck on site. They're waiting for the other vendor to show up. I know we're going to run late. Is it okay if we push you out a half hour? Is it okay if we reschedule? Let me know what works for you. But having that conversation and that connection builds that bond, as you were calling, as the theme of today. We want to find ways to build bonds and stay connected. We do that by communicating.
right,
And it's not too much to pick up the phone. And even if you don't have, oftentimes, sometimes when you're on a support call and an engineer says, hang on 1 second, and let me look into that, or let me run the scan, and he puts you on hold or she puts you on hold for a long time, and the client just wants to know, am I going to be on hold for 10 minutes, 15 minutes? Am I going to be on
right,
hold for 2 minutes? So setting expectations to say, hey, you know what, this scan is gonna take about 15 minutes. If I'm logged into your computer, so if you want to go take lunch, take a break, or whatever, I'm gonna be about 15 minutes. And I'll check in with you in 15 minutes. Or setting those expectations. AI
yep,
can't do that. There isn't that it doesn't have that, that ability to provide that reassurance, to provide that trust building opportunity. It's a whole opportunity to create that trust. And I think reassurance, I think if we add one more into the mix, is important. Um,
absolutely.
there's a couple of things that come to my mind. One of them is when, say, when a client asks for an admin password to their network.
Hmm.
Everyone, I hear Jay, you laugh over there.
Yeah.
Right?
There's
So think of
Joshua shaking his head,
Josh shaking
Jackie
his
yeah,
head,
yeah,
right? And then, yeah, Jack, you absolutely, like, think about it. What they think that we're holding their passwords hostage.
yep,
That's not what we're doing at all. We have this admin password protected so that a hacker doesn't accidentally get access to it, or someone doesn't leave a back door open, or whatever the reason. But a client doesn't understand that. And so there's workarounds and all that. So AI can't respond and explain we got you. Please know that what we're doing is for your best interest. This is, we're trying to protect you. And I know, I think in the past we've created unique passwords for some of the owners of companies or whatever, but really at the end of the day, we need to respond so that they feel protected and not that we're, trying to hold them hostage. And so in AI can't do that yet. And I don't know if it ever will. I certainly can't
Right.
say
I
anything.
like
I'm
it.
saying today.
Yet, who the hell knows?
We don't know, Jay.
Yeah,
We don't know. Like, exactly. Like I said, 6 months from now, this conversation is all different. Six
right.
months from now, this conversation will be very different. So, and then, thinking about when a client moves from an on-prem server to a cloud-based server, or moves their, changes their VoIP phone systems, or they're like, I've never, what's my experience? I'm going to change. It's going to be different. I don't like change. How many clients, how many of you like change, right? None of us really like change.
Right.
But I think the best thing we can do is talk them through it, share stories of other migrations we've done, or other upgrades we've done for phone systems, other upgrades you've done for a variety of things. Share some of your stories and some of that background so that they feel that reassurance that this isn't our first rodeo. We got you. We've got you. And this is AI can't explain all of that. AI, so if we can think about some of those areas that AI is so critical, that AI just
You,
can't, that bond
yeah.
is broken, could be broken.
Yeah. And let's think about, our clients. I don't know if anybody wants to weigh in here, but I mean, you have some that they might email you, they might send you a ticket via maybe your ticketing system, or they're picking up the phone and calling your help desk. And each of them have different needs, and I think it's not only the personality, but I also think it's the scenario.
Yeah. Yeah.
Each situation is different, and they're going to be more apt to deal with a chatbot for maybe scenario A, where scenario B, it's just not going to cut it. They need to speak to a human.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody else wants to share a thought on
It's
that.
aggravating enough just navigating the stupid AI auto attendant.
Yeah.
Mm, good point.
Yes. Absolutely. Like I said, I
Yep.
couldn't get through the other day trying to order books for a client. Couldn't do it. And I could not ask the right question, Jay. I wouldn't, I just couldn't figure out what did they want me to say. Because when I
Right.
would simplify the question, the answer wasn't correct. So, I mean, yeah, we just, you know what? We just have to be so mindful that there are each scenario is unique, and that's where emotional intelligence comes in. And someone at one of my recent talks said, "What's emotional intelligence?" Someone actually asked me, what are soft skills?" They actually had no idea what soft skills were. So
Mm, wow.
soft skills are those interpersonal. So I'll just say, if you don't mind, Dan, soft skills
Yeah.
are those communication skills outside of our clinical, our technical skills. It's that communication that it's the appearance that we deliver, the physical appearance we deliver. It's our behavior and those actions we take. It's how we speak and communicate. And now digitally, it's also how we present ourselves digitally online. Those are soft skills. Those are really what are the foundations of relationship building and what clients stay with us for and why clients trust you and want to be with you. And emotional intelligence is a piece of that where we first, there's a few sides, a couple of sides to it. You start, there's self emotional intelligence where we feel emotions of the situation. So a client is frustrated because they can't find access a file. I think it's simple.
Yeah.
It's somewhere in the C drive, the D drive. I don't know. I've tried. I can't
Right.
find the right drive. And they're feeling. So we know how they're feeling. So we can start to understand how they're feeling. They're feeling frustrated. They're feeling lost. They're feeling under pressure because they have a deadline or they have a client waiting for a call back. So that's number one. And it's also enabling you to feel those emotions like, okay, I'm frustrated because I've shown them this 10 times. They should know by now where that file is and how to access it. But they don't. And
Yeah.
that's why they have us. And so then you determine, how do I need to speak, eye contact, physically position myself so that I'm responding in a way that's not condescending, that doesn't make them feel stupid, that makes them feel like they're super important and that their problem they're having is critical.
They make themselves feel stupid. You don't have to do it.
They don't know that they're feeling stupid, Jay. They don't really know. They don't know. Maybe
I
once
think
the answer is easy, they're like, oh, I should have known that. But
Yeah.
but they don't really realize, a lot of it's not realizing that their behavior and how they're acting, they don't know. That's why emotional intelligence is so tricky, is they just don't, we think that they know, but they really don't realize it. They don't.
Well, I think, one of the biggest challenges that we have, that most MSPs are faced with is you bring on a new employee into your organization
Mhm.
and you give them a username, a password. Here's your email address. Here's your laptop. Here's how you log into the PSA, the RMM. Here's our all other line of business applications that we use that are part of our stack. Go at it. Go close some tickets, right? But all those soft skills, all that training as far as things that we take for granted, um, I just don't see that trained enough. I don't see that, as an ongoing, because it shouldn't be a one and done. It shouldn't be like, hey, you remember 5 years ago when you started, we talked about, how to communicate with clients, and well,
Right.
it's something that we should be doing on a regular basis and should be part of our, ongoing training and cadence, from an educational perspective.
I couldn't agree with you more. And the first thing I created was phone skills training for my company. And every new employee I pre-recorded. It used to be when I wasn't as entrenched with Shore Success as I am now, but when I was just doing really secure future tech, and I would one-on-one train my new employees on what I expected for phone skills. They have scripts. They have, we talk about how to triage a call, how to transfer a call. I tell everybody I listen to recordings of the calls.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our first full-on training. Then we went into, okay, well, what are we looking like as a company as a whole? Not only did we need to rebrand our company because we were formerly PC troubleshooters, and then we changed our name to Secure Future Tech Solutions to be more forward sounding. But then we needed to think about our appearance. When we were showing up on site, what are we
Yeah.
looking? Do we put an emphasis and have a conversation with our team about logoed shirts, about grooming, about the thing, and making eye contact, handshakes, letting clients know that you're physically there and why you're there. And so those kinds of soft skills are not innate. Someone told me at one of my talks that he came up to me and said, I got fired from a client because they believed I was creepy. And I said, well, what
Mm.
happened? And he said, I would go in, I would fix the problem, and I would leave. I wouldn't interact. I wouldn't make small talk. I would leave. I would go in and leave. And so people would just see this person go in and leave. Like, who is this person? And not everybody knows who the IT provider is. Not
in
everybody, we
in,
assume.
in their defense, that is kind of creepy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
is. You're absolutely right. So that's why, because he came up to me, Jay, after we had a conversation, after I presented this, soft skills conversation, he said, I don't do that anymore. I certainly don't do that anyway. So I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
thank goodness. I'm like, just tell them you were there. Say, look at the weather today. How's your dog? How's your, like whatever little bits of connection you can make with people. It doesn't
Yep.
mean have a 25-minute conversation, as we know. time is money, but that little nuance, getting to know your clients and letting them get to know you a little bit is really important to building rapport. And so I
We've
built all of that into your brand Unleashed because I needed to make sure that it wasn't just, our behavior and our appearance that mattered, but we needed to develop the brand is behavior, respect, appearance, networking, and, a dynamic dialogue with what we say and how we say it. But there's also phone skills strategies
right.
in the phone skills training is in there in my book and some strategies on social media. So, because all of that are soft skills that build our credibility.
One of the things we try and do is,
Mhm.
obviously, a lot of stuff we all do is remote, right? But if we haven't been to a client in a while, we'll go on site, even if we can
Good.
do it remote, just to get some FaceTime and whatnot.
Nice. I
I
like
love it.
that.
I love it. Love, love, love. If as many FaceTime appointments as you can get these days, I'd say take
Right.
it. So as much as you can do to do quarterly business review meetings in person, meet for coffee, have networking events, just to be one-on-one connection. So they see that you're there, you can have conversations outside and just and get to know each other and bond. Critical.
I mean, over 20
I
years
love that.
ago when I first started out, first employee that I had was they were contractors. They weren't employees at the time. We were doing residential, starting out in those very early days. Um, I'm technical, but my background comes from sales and marketing. I've worked for startups. I worked for Fortune 500s. We had a dress code. So had my team. They had a dress code. I think we started with khaki colored dress slacks, logoed shirt, black belt, black shoes, black socks, and you need to have a be neatly shaven. If you were going to have a beard, you had to make sure that this part were nicely shaved. And it's all about that appearance, and when we would, and again, because we were starting out with residential, when we would walk into their home, before we would walk into their home, the first question was, would you like me to take my shoes off? Right? Because it's just showing the respect that that's their home. And, it's just setting the stage right from the beginning. And you don't put tools on tools toolbox on their furniture. And if you're going to put it on the floor, make sure that it's clean. It's just all those little attention to details.
Little
And
things.
and I do think my experience of working at Walt Disney World in college on the Disney College program, I owe a lot to that experience as far as what I learned from that,
Mm,
because it is, you have good show and you have bad show. You have on stage, you have off stage, and that's where, we in our environment, in our office, when we're off stage, we can be more relaxed. We can say things differently versus if we're in the face of the client and we're on stage. And, and maybe, might have a situation that you have two technicians at a client site, and what they say and how they say things is so critical at a client office. You might be in their network room, but you don't know who's walking by and listening. You don't know who's in earshot and what they might hear.
right.
And, so even down to things like, yeah, I really have no idea what we're going to do. I have no idea what this problem is. And I mean, if somebody hears that, you're just going to lose confidence. Yes, we're not always going to have the answers. Yes, as troubleshooters, we are investigating. We may not know, but don't advertise it to a point where others can hear it and they're freaking out because they can't get their work done. And all of a sudden they're hearing the experts, having lack of confidence. So just so much of that detail is so critical.
It's that the list is never ending. The detailed list is
Yeah.
never ending in terms of all the details. Our technical skills definitely need to be honed and certified and all the things that are required. But we don't do enough talking about, server room chatter and
Right.
what are our the clients hearing when they walk by you? Or are you on another call when you're on site at a
Hmm.
client site? Are
Right.
you talking to another client while you're billable on that client? Like So
Right.
you don't know. I mean, I can't tell you one year, years ago, we had an engineer who was super smart, super smart. I mean, it was just so tech savvy. It was amazing, but he could not connect with clients. And a client actually said, don't send that engineer back. So how many of
Mm.
you have had that experience? Don't send that
Oh yeah.
engineer back. So at that point, Jay, the client did say, the engineer made me feel stupid. Like they made me feel, like I'm not valid or I'm not, I know my stuff.
Right.
This is what I'm hiring you for, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so we sent another engineer and we said, well, we have another engineer. He actually said, I want that engineer because they knew our company. And I said, I want that engineer. Well, that engineer doesn't know your network the same. They'll learn it. I like them. I can talk to them
Yeah.
where we have great conversation. Just send that engineer. Okay. Okay. And they got up to speed eventually, but that matters to people. People might not always be able to articulate it, but it matters. And how we speak and just thinking about AI. And the more we integrate it, I mean, it's amazing the amount of marketing and content creation I'm able to get done for both businesses. And it's cut down my time immensely in terms of trying to get some marketing content out there. It's amazing for analysis and for really, and my engineers are starting to use, we're chat GPTing it versus Googling it. And you're starting to
Yeah.
see some of that commonality amongst all of us. But I want to make sure we get so excited in the tech industry for new tech, that new shiny
Yeah.
new penny and we have to embrace AI. We don't have a choice, Dan, to embrace AI.
Mm.
We have to.
My
But
last hire was a server at a restaurant. He had great
Oh,
people skills.
nice. I
that's
love that.
wonderful. That's wonderful. If they have the
Yes.
aptitude to learn, Jay, then awesome,
Yeah.
right? You're right. That was so smart because they already know the value of client interaction,
Right.
making people feel special. So
Some of my
critical.
best hires, and these date back, in the days when, of course, you got Best Buy with Geek Squad and I'm gonna really date myself with Circuit City and Fire Dog and all those different type of, retail computer service type solutions that are out there. I would shop those locations to recruit. And, so I would go into those locations. I would identify people that, had just incredible customer service ability, incredible ability to connect the dots. And I would slide them a card and just say, anytime that you're ever looking for an opportunity, here's my card. I own this company. Give me a call. And so those were some of my best technicians because they went through incredible levels of training,
Right.
in those organizations, those are very large organizations that, they'll spend a week or two training them before they even hit the sales floor. And, it's just invaluable.
You didn't
It's,
mention Comp USA.
oh, of
Yes. Oh
course.
gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Gosh, those, now I'm
Did
really
you have
feeling old.
service merchandise or Lechmere in
Not,
Michigan? Have you ever
no,
heard
I'm not
of
familiar with
Lechmere?
those.
A
That's
service
just from Rhode Island, Lisa.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, no, Massachusetts.
Uh,
Lechmere was in Massachusetts. I'm from Massachusetts originally, but
um,
we had Lechmere and service merchandise, and they all had technical stuff too. So service merchandise
Yeah.
had all kinds of stuff, but
Is that like one of those catalog showroom places where you got to
service
pick a
merchandise
number and
became
they,
one. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah, we had
Lechmere
one
was
around
all
here called
technical.
Consumer Distributing or something like that.
Oh. So, but yes, this is
Yeah.
dating ourselves. So,
Yeah.
oh, you
You,
are
you,
Dorn? I didn't know that. Ah. I love it. Fellow Rhode
yeah.
Islander. Yeah, and
There you
Josh, so
go.
see, Josh, you knew. So service merchandise. Yep. Huh? Eric's a URI alum as well. My husband went to URI. Go Rhody. So
Very cool.
anyway,
Small,
so
small,
that just
small world.
it's such a small world. So, we have to remember that look how far off on the different tangents we've made in this one
Yeah.
conversation and how many areas Not once did I talk to you guys about a tech stack. Not once did we talk about your pricing.
Yep.
Not once. And I don't want that. That's not who I want to be known for. That's really not it's not my area of expertise. I mean, I know all the vendors and all of that, but what I want us to really have a conversation on and to build it into staff meeting discussions.
Right.
So if I may, I'll share one quick story. One last story is
Yeah.
Eric and I were working a trade show on Saturday at the Dental Association. The Rhode Island Dental Association had their first trade show. And at the very end of the show, a young married couple came up to us, and I'll leave their names out, but the wife is a dental associate, and she is working on building out a new dental practice. And the husband is a mechanical engineering teacher at a local university. Well, actually at URI, actually. So, and he's working on the build out of the building and of the dental practice and all of that. And so we asked, tell us about what you're doing for tech. What are your plans for tech? We were all excited. Eric and I were cheering them on, and without
Yeah.
like being salesy or anything. Well, tell me, let's talk about your tech. What are you up to? What are you doing? Oh, we should probably talk about that. We should probably have a conversation about that. So here they are building out their, the future dental practice, and they hadn't built in the conversation of tech. The wiring that's involved, the cabling that's involved, the operatories and what's needed for wiring in their operatories and all the fun things. And so we talked to them, and so I share this story because I shared it this morning with my team. So on Wednesdays we do Wednesday Wisdom. And I shared this story with my team because I wanted them to hear that tech isn't always the first thought that comes to mind for clients. They specialize in what they know. And so they were focusing on, yeah, they talked about some dental software that they were looking into. And they were talking about the drills and the chairs needed and how many operatories they wanted, but they hadn't talked about the tech. So when we get frustrated because we want clients to focus on the tech, we just have to remember that they focus on what they specialize in their
Right.
lane. So I use that as a teachable moment for my team. So that's a story that you can share with your teams. What other soft skills stories or examples can you share? This whole conversation, you can take the different words that we use, the different, I call them success strategies that AI can't compete with. Have one staff meeting and talk about empathy. How do we show empathy to our clients?
Yeah.
Turn that into a staff meeting, because that's how soft skills become part of the culture of a company, not just, oh my gosh, I need to clean up a mess of a company.
So a couple things you threw out there. One is you were at a dental association trade show. I've talked a lot in the past about how we should get out there to different industry events like that. Uh, two things. One, from a perspective of learning about what that particular trade is doing, what is being communicated, because they might be hearing things. I mean, we've all had a client, maybe it's a CPA, maybe it's a dentist that, they come back from a conference and they're like, oh yeah, we hear this is the trend. Well, why not be there first?
Right.
Why not be there? Listen, hear what's going on. But it sounds like you were exhibiting there, correct?
Mhm. We not
Yeah.
only
So,
exhibited, we spoke too. I
oh,
got us a
incredible.
speaking spot. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. And so, what an incredible opportunity to drive new business, get
Yes.
out to different trade association events that are occurring in your area and, and look for opportunities to grow your business. And so, those are great. I love that.
Not at the Civic Center, Norm. We were at the Twin Rivers Casino. So they have a big conference area. So in
Nice.
Lincoln, Rhode Island. But yeah, I mean, I think that getting out and networking and making that human connection, as much as AI is growing, We need to make
Yeah,
intentional efforts to get out and speak and
absolutely.
present, let people know we're there. Don't be the best kept secret, is what
There
I
you
always
go.
say about marketing.
Well, we are at the top of the hour in the world of AI. Lisa has taught us about continuing to stay personal, being human, staying on that side of humanity because people still buy from people,
Right.
and it's so much more than that tech. Lisa, as always, I thank you for your time and your knowledge. I did throw into the chat, and I will throw up onto YouTube as well if you want to connect with Lisa. There is a link to her on LinkedIn. So be sure to reach out to Lisa Shore Success. And with that being said, everybody have a great rest of your day, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Take care.
So
Thank
long,
you
everybody.
so much.
Thank you.